Welcome to the Audacious Living Podcast, hosted by my man, Audley Stephenson, the Odd Man.
Greetings and salutations. Welcome to the Audacious Living Podcast, where our mission is to empower you to live your best audacious life ever. It's always a pleasure to be here sharing insights and inspirations, as well as stories that encourage you to embrace your unique journey. I truly appreciate you for taking time out of your day to join us. And I really hope that you find the discussions that we have here on this podcast helpful as you strive to create a life full of purpose and audacity. Now, imagine walking into a dimly lit room. You can sense the furniture around you, but you can't necessarily see it all clearly. This is akin to leadership without awareness. Just as, turning on that light allows you to see the layout, the colors, and the details of the room, awareness in leadership illuminates the complexities of social impact and decision making. When leaders become aware, they can navigate their environment more effectively, connecting with their teams as well as communities to foster real change. Today's guest is Mai Moore. She's a visionary in the realm of social impact with over 20 years in the tech industry and a real passion for empowering our youth and our young people. Mai has co-founded a not-for-profit organization which has served thousands of underserved youth, teaching them how to create meaningful change, not only for themselves, but for the world around them. She's also the founder of Boss Me, a company focused on bridging the generational gap in the workplace. Mai's dedication to fostering awareness and intergenerational leadership makes her a perfect fit for our conversation on living audaciously through social impact. In our conversation, we dove into the essential skills that emerging leaders need today to have. These include things like, connecting the dots to understand how various elements influence one another, mastering community organizing, to mobilizing and inspire action, and honing communication skills that bridge the gaps as well as foster understanding. We discussed how self-leadership is essential in a world that is constantly evolving. By understanding ourselves and our values and things that are important to us, we can adapt and respond to challenges with confidence and clarity. The conversation tackled how privilege and sheltering can create barriers in society, and it's so important because by recognizing these factors, it's really crucial actually for fostering equity and compassion in our communities. We also explored the concept of consciousness leadership, which emphasizes awareness, empathy, and a commitment to social justice. This leadership style is increasingly relevant in today's landscape where, things like inclusivity and equitable practices are really, really gaining traction. So I've given you a whole lot here. And like I said, it was a great conversation. I'm certain you all enjoy. So let's turn it over to Mai, and here's what she has to share with us. Greetings, Mai. Thank you for joining me here today on the Audacious Living Podcast. I appreciate you for taking the time to do this. Thank you.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure. Good morning.
Yeah, for sure. Much time is spent on this podcast, really encouraging individuals to live that best audacious life. And I think really a sort of important piece of this is that we're all on our own individual path, our own individual journey, and the steps that we take, will get us towards close to where we're supposed to be. Challenging, every so often, we'll look to the left or right and we'll see what other people are doing, and maybe we want to gravitate to that because that looks like something we want, but if it's not destined for us, not really isn't a way that we should be going. So really, again, stepping into ourselves where that audaciousness comes in. And so when you think of sort of your work in the world of social impact, you're looking to prompt change, right, and bring about change, and that sometimes is scary, and that process of bringing about change also is scary. So maybe as a starting point, I can get you to introduce yourself to our audience and describe further the work that you do.
Sure. Thank you, Audley. I call myself #almost social impact here to awaken awareness so that people can see more clearly to lead better. And really my dream or my vision is to create a more equitable, empowered, and connected world. And, my background, I'm a human, and I spent over 20 years in tech. I helped two companies go public, completely changed gears, and co-founded a nonprofit called EYEJ, Empowering Youth Exploring Justice, which is all about empowering young advocates for change.
Mm-hmm.
Served 2,000 underserved youth there with the help of 1,400 very diverse adults, really teaching them how do you create change, like beyond the idea, how do you actually implement and execute it. Did that for 10 years. And then, I wanted to get back into, that was in Cleveland, and I wanted to get more back into the national and international kind of world and continue my social impact journey, and became founder of a company called Boss Me In, which is all about bridging the intergenerational gap for the future of work. So really focused on intergenerational leadership and bridging between executive and Gen Z.
Yes.
And then I'm still focused on that somewhat, but I'm very focused on this whole concept now about awakening awareness. As I realized, for the last 13 years, I was like questioning myself, like, what the heck what was the real work there? And it was really about, I was helping to build awareness in culture and community. So.
So thank you for that. I'm actually really curious. I want to go back to the start there. Having sounds like a successful corporate career, to make that change, to make that shift is sort of totally different direction. If I think it's safe to say. What kind of prompted that shift? Did you have your own awakening, or what was happening?
Oh yeah. The truth is definitely 100% God, because I never, ever in a million years saw myself working with young people or in, at that time, social justice, like a nonprofit, like that was not even, in my plans. And yes, I was in corporate, and, I think I've always been a visionary, and not to say this is good or bad, but I've always been like kind of ahead of the game. And I had those experiences that a lot of us have, where, there's, I would say minorities and women who are fighting for that one spot at the top, or just the political draining that it takes on your energy level, all those kind of things, or the injustices that, or oppression that, we experience. And I moved back to Cleveland, and it literally was a calling. It was, I'm a Libra, and I am what I call a bridge between worlds. And I could not understand how there was 27,000 nonprofits in Northeast Ohio, and yet youth were at this state of toxic stress.
Right.
It just boggled my mind. And I think the real answer to your question is, there was the Trayvon Martin ruling had just come out, and I remember I was at church on the Sunday, and I was talking to an elder member, and I was sitting on the stoop there, and I said, we have to do something. Like it just didn't sit well with me. Right. And so that was really that starting point in that journey.
Mm-hmm. And part of your work, there's an emphasis on the power of awareness. When did that come into play? Was it kind of a pivotal moment where you realized this could be a worthwhile tool, or what was that like?
The awareness piece honestly just came to me a couple months ago. Meaning, like, I wasn't, my intention when I was doing the work of EYEJ was not intentionally like I was trying to make people aware, but I guess that now that I look back, I was, because the way that we had formatted our programming, like, as an example, we had, as one of the programs, a discussion series where we would bring in two people of different walks of life to come talk to the young people, but then it would be a back and forth dialogue. That was all awareness from all parts, right? And to bridge, a returning citizen with, a very, powerful lawyer, it was not really done in Cleveland often. And to then be in front of an underserved youth, which is another level of awareness, to hear from them on what they're going through, just having really real, safe discussions, was all awareness. I mean, you can't, as much as you may want to, sometimes you cannot turn your head around and walk away from that easily.
Right.
Right.
Can't unsee what's been saw.
Right. So yeah, I mean, again, that was just a start. And the same thing with Boss Me In is like, bridging again, a lot of, so what happened with Boss Me In is I had became a chief, which is a large women's network. And I was really paying attention to what was happening with women.
Right.
And that was about 3 years ago. And it was really about the Great Resignation and DEI issues, and pay gap was all of a sudden like in, the theme. And, I thought that, becoming a chief, I thought chiefs had all the answers.
Right.
But little did I know that I was really teaching some of that. And again, they, were not aware also what Gen Z are going through, and vice versa. Gen Z are not always
Right.
aware of what executives are going through. Like, we're still growing, we're still learning, we're still evolving too. So it's awareness all around. So I think what prompted the awareness, kind of theme was I had just moved to New York City and in January. And, when you move, that's a shift in your life, and
Right.
that takes some time to reflect on, your life and what you've been doing. And so that was like, oh, I had been, I think I kind of knew it here and there, but it really hit me. It was clear. Let me put it that way, that I had built a lot of awareness, which led to a lot of change.
Gotcha. It's funny. There's an analogy sometimes in describing awareness that I use. I sort of, if you envision, a living room, and in your living room, you've got your sofa and your couch, your lamp, your television, coffee table. And if someone turns that light off, those items are still in the room. They don't leave the room. The awareness is the light switch that turns them on. And so that makes them visible to everyone else. But the fact of the matter is, when we're talking about helping people being aware, to your earlier point, you're actually awakening them, because it's not like you're bringing something new to the table. It's there.
It's there. And I think we're in a world right now where it is about, people are questioning a lot of things about leadership and, do we have great leaders right now, and what it takes to be a good leader. And what I do know is that we are in an impact economy, and in order to create good impact, you have to be aware, you have to be able to see clearly. In order to lead well, you have to be able to see clearly. And so I think a lot of the issues in society is that people they've either chosen not to see clearly, they haven't been held accountable to see clearly, or they just don't see clearly, and hence why we're in the state that we're in.
Got you. Your work, it challenges kind of individuals and organizations to think differently. And I know there's a couple sort of reflective questions that you have, like, what are we not seeing, or what are the limiting beliefs that are holding us back? I'm curious for those that, because this is again a reflective way of thinking they're going to have to adopt. And so for those individuals that may not operate in that matter, how do we what can they do to kind of get in that mindset or mind frame?
Yeah. Unfortunately, we don't have a choice right now. And I say unfortunately because, there are many people, many organizations for hundreds of years that have been warning about what's happening right now, and people chose not to listen, or again, we're not held accountable to listen. So I think, it's the whole scenario of, we're in a society that until it touches you, people, don't necessarily care. And now things are touching people left, right, and center. And it doesn't matter what social economic class, what race, what gender, everyone's being touched right now. And I think people are looking for answers of, what do we do now?
Right.
So, yeah.
But from your perspective, what are the sort of the major issues that we're facing as a society from a social impact standpoint?
How long is this podcast? From what? Oh, that's a big question there.
First, a few.
I'll name a couple things. We we are in a where do I even start? Jesus. Well, we know the systems were not designed for all. That's number one. Number two is we come from a culture of capitalism and it's not equitable. And so there's a big shift happening there. We as humans are not we're not all doing the work, meaning, that self leadership is vital. So being able to face yourself, being able to, whether you need to heal or whether you need to spend time reflecting or understanding what your purpose is or your calling. There's a large part of culture and society that has not done that work, nor choose to do that work. And so what happens with that is that we don't have people that are fully evolved.
Mm,
And so that causes toxicity.
right.
So those are my three, but I have probably about 3,000.
Most certainly, I'm sure you do. It's interesting as you talk about the last point on people who are not fully evolved and not doing the work. I think that's when I think about just even that within that context, the awareness work that you do, it becomes even that much more critical. We need more people to turn on those light switches to be able to see, because
Yes, and it's
once
happening.
right? So once you've got that awareness, that's where the self leadership can kick in. But if you don't know, and whether you're intentionally ignorant or not, if you don't know, you can't do anything about it.
Right. I think the problem too is that some people know and are not doing anything about it. That's what's held us back as a human race in some ways as
Mm-hmm,
well.
hmm Okay, yeah, no. Um, again, work around with leaders and organizations to really, cultivate this approach and thinking. Are there blind spots that people aren't recognizing, or does this fall back on awareness?
Hmm. Yeah, there's a lot of blind spots. What I say right now. So I'm half Caucasian. I have a very, um, I'm very unique. I'm half Japanese, half Caucasian. I grew up, in a very diverse culture, having grown up with a lot of different, very, very diverse African American families.
Hmm
So I've seen a lot. And back to my Caucasian side of the family, these are really good people. But what I see is that a lot of them are very sheltered, right? So I would say that's a huge blind spot. And again, not necessarily it's not necessarily their fault. It's again the design of our systems. And I just go back to that sheltering, and also what that has led to is an immense amount of privilege. Because I believe that we're all privileged. Honestly, we're alive. We're lucky to be alive. But in that sense, what I'm talking about is, again, non equitable privilege. And also, privilege doesn't always have to be negative, but you know some people, we're not grateful for our privilege, or we're not really caring for our society, or helping the next set of generational leaders, which is our duty as humans. So that sheltering piece is a huge, and it's not only, let me be clear, it's not only Caucasians.
hmm
Let's not we're in a different world now where it's not black versus white anymore. It's there's sheltering happening in a lot of different cultures. However, it happens to be more predominant in this culture.
Right, right. And we'll see even within cultures that sheltering still exists, right? So
Yes,
beyond,
yes.
yeah, within that. So no, okay. So as we talk about building this, so the next generation of leaders, right, to deal with this type of social change, what kind of key skills do you think are required or need should be there?
Yeah, the skills that I say that young people need, no one's really talking about. And you see these lists from LinkedIn of the skills that are needed for 2025, and I'm just like, okay, whatever. The skills that I think they need is, we need to know how to connect the dots, right? So what I mean by that is, when you're working on something, you have to know how something impacts
Right.
every single point, the people around it, the communities around it, every single point. And in society, we're taught maybe to go to point M, but we're not going to point Z. So I think connecting the dots is huge. I would say another skill is learning how to community organize. I think community organizers are one of the most underrated
Mm,
skills, professions, whatever you want to call it, in society right now, because it is all about community right now. Um, I would say a third skill that needs to be worked on is communication.
Mm.
It's very complex, obviously, and it's not a blame game, because look at all the technology that we have right now in social media. But I really respect that old way, even the military way of, or even a religious way, call and response, or the military, I speak, you speak, and you're repeating back what I said, just to make
Right.
sure that I'm hearing that you understood me, or kind of thing. So I would say those three things. I mean, there's many more, but I would say those three are important.
Curious when we talk about social impact, and I wonder if there um, are possible misconceptions that maybe people don't understand what social impact is, or maybe you
Mhm.
want them to understand more. What would that be?
Right. There is a lot of misunderstanding. Even I have to repeat to my team oftentimes, to me, UIJ was very much about social justice.
Okay.
And so it's about fixing the injustices in the world. Social impact to me is about people. And so, I could be wrong or right here, whatever, it doesn't matter. But social impact could be layered into a nonprofit. It could be layered into a corporation. It could be layered
Mhm.
into a tech company, whatever. And social impact also can mean nonprofit. It can mean for profit. But at the end of the day, for me, it's about humanity and people. I think that this new world that we're walking into right now is all about people.
Right, right, right. And it's funny because you think of the advent of AI technology as an example, and
Mhm.
the concern is that people are being phased out, when you never can, because of what the innate skills, that human centric approach still
Yeah.
needs to exist in our society.
Totally. And I
Mhm.
think a lot of young people, and I mean, including myself, there's been points where there's a lot of fear created from and there are leaders that are really trying to push for more of that technology or robots to come in. And there will be some of that. It is happening.
Mhm.
But to your point, and that's why going back to your other point, that's why we need to step more into self leadership, to evolve ourselves more, to be more confident in ourselves and our value. Because to your point, like, AI, awesome. It's a tool, and it has a long way to develop as well. But we are providing a human centric approach. We provide things that AI will never be able to create, and it
Right.
is a tool to support. It's not a boss to us.
Right, right, right. I mean, there's many times where you type something and it spits out something at you, and it's like, there's no way I would say this. Like, this doesn't
Right,
sound like, that doesn't have my voice, my uniqueness, and that's what
right,
we're alluding to, in the importance of.
right.
I would imagine, again, you're in the field of change, right? And that's what social impact is all about. But there are many that might be still resistant. I think change on a whole is a challenging topic for individuals to face. And so when someone is continually advocating and pushing this forward, and people are resistant because they just don't like change, it doesn't matter what the change is, they don't like the
Right.
change. I can see where that could be challenging. Do you sort of run into a lot of that, or what does that look like for you?
I think that partially we're brainwashed to be taught that change is this negative thing,
Right.
and it's a normal course of life. And I think the other thing is, we don't embrace how people are different, right? And so people are going to change again, no matter what we like, if we like it or not. But people may change at different rates, different speeds. um some people are faster, some people are slower, and that's actually a beautiful thing that we need to embrace, right? There's a diversity there. And so it bothers me that there's been this kind of negative connotation to it.
Hmm.
But yeah, to your point, of course, we are in a society. What I look at as, there is a lot of people holding on to that status quo, but then there's a lot of people that are very open to change right now. And if honestly, if you are not open to change and you're not open minded right now,
Hmm. Hmm.
um, I mean, that's not it. That's not really in right now. To
Yeah,
be
no, I think you
Yeah,
continue to be thinking ahead and looking forward, and what's
yeah,
to come, right? I think that's
yeah,
important because things are rapidly changing as much as they are.
yeah, yeah. And it's hard to keep up. There's but it's also a training. It's a skill. We're in a world where, yeah, of course it's overwhelming at times, but that's the world we live in right now. There's a lot of information. We're learning how to process that information and how quickly we can. And at the same time, balancing ourselves to say, okay, I need a rest right here. I need a moment of silence, away from this to gather myself back to be centered. So it's a blessing in some ways.
Yeah, it sounds like it. So when you look ahead, just curious, is there any particular thing that sort of excites you about the direction of social impact and leadership? I mean, are there trends or
Definitely.
things that are on the horizon that really make it a little change the landscape or anything like that?
Definitely. I feel like there is a lot of good happening. A lot of things. There is a lot of innovation happening. There's a lot of people building. There's a lot of new ideas. Gen Z. I mean, I am blown away with the number of Gen Z founders that we have right now that are
Hmm.
creating, they're watching us and they're seeing all the issues and they're problem solving. Also, women, I feel like, women are really evolving and they're trying to create changes within corporations while, developing themselves and their purpose. I think that's exciting. I think also there is a lot of more talk now about consciousness leadership. I think that's exciting. I think there's also changes in how we view people and again, that old capitalistic way I feel is kind of dying out, and there's this new kind of push for being more equitable,
Hmm.
which I think is exciting. I'm excited that a lot more people are stepping up to the plate, like in masses, not just with EYJ. I mean, it was like pulling, like it was, what's the term? Like it's like when it's really difficult. I forgot the term, but
Arduous, hard.
yes, but like, it's like to try to get people involved, to try to get people aware, or try to get people to fight for, the cause was like grueling sometimes. And now I feel like it's easier and you're seeing a lot more diversity in people fighting for causes. And it's not so um I feel like there is a lot more equity. And honestly, I'll be straight up. I see right now a lot of white males that are stepping up to the plate in leadership to say there needs to be change. There
Mm,
needs to be more consciousness leadership. There needs to be more equity.
yeah,
Fighting for DEI. I mean, we had never seen that before.
right.
That's amazing.
Mm. And I think when you sort of give the example, the white male stepping up, I think part of that's recognizing, the white privilege existed, but now
Yeah.
it's time to change. And hearing it from that perspective really lends a lot of power to the message overall.
Yeah, it does. And just being human.
Yeah.
you know just being human, because we do have still continue to have empathy for each other and realize, I like to look at people for individual who they are. You don't We can't judge. You don't know their background. They
Right.
they might have grew up in a all white community. I don't We don't know, and
Mhm.
they never knew. We don't know, so just be careful judging, I think,
Right.
and right now.
No, I think it's all key points, and even just want to kind of go back to the awareness thing because there's a part of this, especially when you're working with organizations or companies. There's a part of this where there also there almost needs to be like a shift in the culture to building an awareness, so it's happening automatically as opposed to, especially instead of when so and so shows up, okay, we're in awareness mode because this person's driving it in, and
Right.
rather whereas when it's embedded into the culture, it just becomes something we just naturally do.
Right. And honestly, people like me should never have this kind of role. You know what I mean? Because this is normal everyday humanity. I should never have had to create these businesses. It should just be normal practice, breathing
Right.
like the rest of us do on a daily basis.
Got you. Um, I'm wondering. It's sort of definitely a wonderful conversation, Maya, and I appreciate the insights you've offered. If you sort of could leave our audience with sort of one thought, or maybe a call to action of something of some sort, or something, just even something to ponder or think about, what would that be?
You are important. You hold a lot of power within you, and all of those dreams and thoughts that you have had in your mind that you oppressed, that you pushed away because you thought they may not be valid or worthy, or you were told that they were not important. You need to bring those thoughts back up, because that was incorrect information that you received. And, your purpose is, it's so timely right now. And there are no rules right now. And get yourself out there, get your voice out there, follow your heart and what you have always wanted to see. Again, your dreams, make it happen.
And you can do that all very audaciously, can't you? For listeners that wanted to connect with you directly, Mai, and learn more about the work that you do, where can we send them?
I would suggest my website, maimoore.com, MAIMOORE.com.
Great. And we're going to make sure that all the contact details are in the show notes below. So again, I appreciate you taking the time. Congratulations on the fantastic work. Again, that shifting. You're talking about shifting cultures here, right? We're talking about building awareness, shifting cultures, because that leads to sustainability, and that's a huge job. So yeah. Kudos to you for doing that, and thank you for being a guest today here on the Audacious Living Podcast.
Thank you. You're lovely, Audley. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. Back, we are here on the podcast, and one of the key points from my conversation with Mai that really resonated deeply with me was her emphasis on the power of awareness in leadership. She articulated that awareness is not just about seeing the issues around us, but also understanding, how our actions impact the world. Mai's insights on the importance of connecting the dots, and I really love that analogy, connecting the dots, and the need for community organizing are essential skills for future leaders. And that, again, it really resonated with me and struck a chord. I love how she challenged, conventional narratives by highlighting that leadership should be about humanity and empathy rather than, focusing on a checklist of skills and achievements. It's really about being present and engaged in the communities in which we serve. And I certainly encourage you to connect with Mai directly to learn more about, her transformative work and the difference she's making in the lives of others, especially our young people. You can find her contact details as well as a website in the show notes below. I want to take this opportunity to thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Audacious Living Podcast. If you found value in today's discussion, please take a moment to like, follow, subscribe, or share with family and friends if you haven't already done so. Your support, of course, helps us to grow our community and to continue to inspire others to live audaciously. Until next time, embrace your power and stay aware, as well as keep striving for change. And oh yeah, be audacious.
You've been listening to the Audacious Living Podcast, hosted by Audley Stephenson. If you enjoyed what you heard, be sure to like, subscribe, and share. Until next time, be audacious.